Welcome to Real Paranormal Activity, the network. Entertainment you'll enjoy.
You are listening to an RPA production, where people gather. LaFosse Corporation, LLC.
The world is full of mysteries. It's full of strangeness. And it exists with oddities. That's what we do on this show. We examine the strangeness, the mysterious, the oddities. This is Terry's Mysterious Moments, and I am your presenter, Terry from Texas. This is Season 8. Welcome if it's your first time. Welcome back if you've been here before. Go with us on this trip while we look at cryptids like Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Loch Ness Monster, and maybe even Thunderbirds. Be with us while we examine stories of legends such as werewolves, vampires, witches, ghosts, and hauntings. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the show. It's nighttime. A fair peace into the night after beddy-bye time. One of the only sounds is the rhythmic sound of breathing as the residents are falling further and further asleep. It's peaceful this time of night until it isn't. 8-year-old Tommy begins pitching around in his bed, mumbling unintelligible sounds until suddenly he lets go with a blood-curdling scream and sits bolt upright. His eyes are screwed tightly shut, and it seems he is still asleep. Family members are quick to respond to Tommy. They are able to quieten his screams, and his eyes flutter open. They are filled with a combination of things: terror, loss, confusion. After a few more minutes of calming Tommy down, he begins to describe what happened. Tommy describes how peaceful he was sleeping. He then began hearing whispers, steps, louder voices, and he felt things touching him, first gently, then more aggressively. Tommy says he opened his eyes and saw a bunch of shadows, then one became clear. It was a haggish old woman. That's when he began screaming, but he said he couldn't move to get away. Suddenly, he felt free and sat up. He woke up to find his family around him. Tommy had experienced a night terror. Night terrors, which are also called sleep terrors, it's a sleep disorder that causes a person to wake up suddenly in a state of terror. Therefore, the name terrors. It typically occurs during the first hours of stage 3 and 4 non-rapid eye movement or REM sleep and lasts for 1 to 10 minutes, but can last longer, especially in children. One of the main characters, if you will, in the ever-evolving cast of characters from the night terror group of actors is the old hag. The hag has a long history of being a not-so-nice being. A hag, by definition, is a wizened old woman or a kind of fairy or goddess having the appearance of such a woman, often found in folklore and children's tales such as Hansel and Gretel. Hags are often seen as malevolent, but may also be one of the chosen forms of shape-shifting deities such as the Morrigan or the Badba, who are seen as neither wholly benevolent nor wholly malevolent. This term appears in Middle English and is a shortening of hagtessa, an Old English term for witch. Similarly, the Dutch word hex, H-E-K-S, and the German word hexe, H-E-X-E, are also shortenings of the Middle Dutch Haggetis and Old High German Hagzusa, respectively. All of these words are derived from the Proto-Germanic Haggetusjan, which is of unknown origin. The first element may be related to the word hedge. As a stock character in fairy or folk tale, the hag shares characteristics with the crone, and the two words are sometimes used as if interchangeable. Using the word hag to translate terms found in non-English or non-modern English is contentious, since use of the word sometimes is associated with misogyny. It's not nice to call a woman a hag, even if she is one. A night hag, or the old hag, was a nightmare spirit in English and Anglophone North American folklore. This variety of hag, essentially identical to the Old English mara, a being with roots in ancient Germanic superstition, and closely related to the Scandinavian mara. According to the folklore, the old hag sits on the sleeper's chest and sends nightmares to him or her. When the subject awoke, he or she would be unable to breathe or even move for a short period of time. In the Swedish film Marianne, the main character suffers from such nightmares. This state is now called sleep paralysis, but in the old belief, the subject was considered hag-ridden. It is still frequently discussed as if it were a paranormal state. I'm going to say that again. Sleep paralysis is still frequently discussed as if it were a paranormal state. This indicates that sleep paralysis is not paranormal, it's natural. Many stories about hags seem to have been used to frighten children into being good. In northern England, for example, Peg Powler was a river hag who lived in the River Tees and had skin the color of green pond scum. Oh, what a lovely complexion. Parents who wanted to keep their children away from the river's edge told them that if they got too close to the water, she would pull them in with her long arms, drown them, and sometimes eat them. This type of nixie or neck has other regional names such as Grindylow, which is a name connected to Grendel of the Beowulf legend, Jenny Greenteeth from Yorkshire, and Nellie Longarm from several English counties. Many tales about hags do not describe them well enough to distinguish between an old woman who knows magic or a witch or a supernatural being. In Slavic folklore, the Baba Yaga was a hag who lived in the woods in a house that had chicken legs. She would often ride through the forest on a mortar, sweeping away her tracks with a broom. Though she is usually a single being, in some folk tales 3 Baba Yagas are depicted as helping the hero in his quest, either by giving advice or by giving gifts. In Irish and Scottish mythology, and I'm going to tear up this word, the Cailleach is a hag goddess concerned with creation, harvest, the weather, and sovereignty. In partnership with the goddess Brid, she is a seasonal goddess seen as ruling the winter months while Brid rules the summer. In Scotland, a group of hags, known as the Cailleachin, or the storm hags, are seen as personifications of the elemental powers of nature, especially in a destructive aspect. They are said to be particularly active in raising the windstorms of spring during the period known as Cailleach. Hags as sovereignty figures abound in Irish mythology. The most common pattern that the hag represents the barren land, who the hero of the tale must approach without fear and come to love her on her own terms. When the hero displays the courage, the love, and the acceptance of the hideous side, the sovereignty hag then reveals that she is also a young and beautiful goddess. In ancient Greek religion, the three fates, particularly Atropo, are often depicted as hags. Hags are similar to Lilith of the Torah and the Old Testament. In medieval and later literature, the term hag and its relatives in European languages came to stand for an unattractive older woman. Building on the medieval tradition of such women as portrayed in comic and burlesque literature, specifically in the Italian Renaissance, the hag represented the opposite of the lovely lady familiar from the poetry of Petrarch. In modern times, one of the pieces of this puzzle is commonly referred to as sleep paralysis. Sleep researchers conclude that in most cases, sleep paralysis is simply a sign that your body is not moving smoothly through the stages of sleep. Rarely is sleep paralysis linked to deep underlying psychiatric problems. Over the centuries, symptoms of sleep paralysis have been described in many ways and are often attributed to an evil presence. Unseen night demons in ancient times, the old hag in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and alien abductors. Almost every culture throughout history has had stories of shadowy evil creatures that terrify hapless humans at night. People have long sought explanations for this mysterious sleep-time paralysis and the accompanying feelings of terror. Sleep paralysis is a feeling of being conscious but unable to move. It occurs when a person passes between stages of wakefulness and sleep. During these transitions, you may be unable to move or speak for a few seconds or up to a few minutes. Some people may also feel pressure and a sense of choking. Sleep paralysis may accompany other sleep disorders such as narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is an overpowering need to sleep caused by a problem within the brain's ability to regulate sleep. Just why or how it happens, it's not clear. Researchers believe sleep paralysis is caused by a disturbed rapid eye movement cycle because it mostly happens as people are falling into or coming out of REM sleep. During that stage, their brains normally paralyze their muscles anyway, so they don't act out their dreams. But during sleep paralysis, the sleeper is awake, or half awake, and so is aware they cannot move. Studies show that between 25% and 50% of Americans have had sleep paralysis at least once. Many people who have it also have narcolepsy, in which they fall asleep uncontrollably. Sleep experts believe sleep paralysis might be partly genetic. For the purposes of our story, let's take a look at some of the things that accompany sleep paralysis and transition into night terrors. I've already mentioned the hag, a centuries-old boogeyman. There are also shadow persons. Shadow people are the perception of shadows as living humanoid figures that some believe represent the presence of spirits or other entities. Some researchers have theorized that shadow people are actually people, just not from our dimension. One of the more popular shadow people is referred to as the Hat Man, due to a stylish chapeau he appears to be wearing. Apparently, unlike the hag, the Hat Man seems to be a watching entity, but does appear during night terror incidents. The origins of the Hat Man are unknown. There have been varied reports of him by several people across the world, appearing to them in differing states of consciousness and health, including in nightmares, under sleep paralysis or deprivation, under psychotic or schizophrenic episodes, or under the influence of deliriant substances such as diphenhydramine, with the final being so common that he's formed an in-joke in DPH communities. Now there's something I didn't know. There's DPH communities. I don't know if they're users of DPH or abusers of DPH or just lovers of the stuff. Some people have attempted to collect reports of his appearance and to discern his motives or existence. For example, there's the Hat Man Project, which I would guess investigates stories of the Hat Man. Many people believe the Hat Man to be a form of shadow people, a group of dark humanoid figures that often appear to individuals under psychosis, delirium, sleep paralysis or deprivation, and some theorize them to be visitors from another realm or planet, or draw comparisons to other shadow beings such as the Jinn and the Nalusa Chito. His behavior appears to vary per individual. However, some consistent behavior is observed irrespective of state of consciousness, such as appearing more vivid or realistic compared to other hallucinations. They stalk or observe the human. They disappear when approached. They morph into other objects. They appear in doorways, and they appear to children, and most often are silent. With regards to his appearance, he's described as being pitch black, very tall, allegedly over 8 foot in height, and dressed in a trench coat and a brimmed hat. Some also describe a fog emanating off of him. In spite of the dread, delirium, or fear that many witnesses feel, very few reports exist of him physically harming or attempting to harm a human. Thus, some believe that he's a benevolent or a neutral being. Although many people believe it to be false, it could be real, and many people may be suffering from sleep paralysis demons from REM sleep, and they could be coming into the waking world. There are several beings or entities associated with night terrors, such as Slender Man, who is described as an utter fake as far as reality goes, a creepypasta offering that has gained and perhaps lost a rabid following thanks to the internet. Personally, I can recall as a child suffering from night terrors, but they don't fit in with the descriptions listed above. However, I did have a night terror of a sort before I left home for university. I woke up to see a figure standing by my bed. This figure was silent, not moving, and was wearing a high-collared Dracula-type cape. This wasn't necessarily the frightening part. Beside him, one on either side, stood 2 huge wolves with glowing red eyes. There was no evidence of sleep paralysis, as I was able to exit my bed by crab walking off the foot of the bed. I definitely screamed when I saw this, but became clear-headed when my feet touched the floor and the image disappeared. It was pulse-pounding, to say the least. And I've had one that I can remember bout of sleep paralysis, but that was, I believe, induced by the application of over-the-counter sleeping pills. Nitol, I believe it was. So, night terrors are real. Science claims to have a theory about how and why they happen. I don't think they postulated upon the visual aspect of those terrors, though, such as, where do these boogeymen come from? Do the Hag, the Hat Man, Slender Man, or even my Dracula-istic night visitor come and go in reality? Or do they live rent-free in our psyches? Do shadow people actually exist in another place and time? and just shift back and forth, just checking up on us? And why is it that the most vulnerable of us, children, experience night terrors seemingly more than others? I know that my ongoing night terrors happened when I was a preschooler. So tell me, what are the subjects of your night terrors? Do you see shadow people? Have you seen the Hat Man? Has the Hag bothered you in the middle of the night? Does Slender Man exist in your dreams? Tell me about it. Has anybody ever seen my Dracula-istic interloper with his 2 wolves? Curious. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed listening. I'm glad you were here, and I hope you'll be back again for the next Terry's Mysterious Moments. Have a good week and be safe. Bye.